The Thalari were a peaceful race. For over 2,000 years, they had lived among stars, building floating cities of crystal and light. Their ships glided, not roared. Their culture valued harmony, not conquest. Violence was almost forgotten. Something they spoke of in stories like fire long buried beneath ice. But peace is a dangerous dream when the galaxy hides monsters in its dark corners. And one day, that darkness came for them. It started on a farming moon, quiet and green. The sun had just risen when shadows fell from the sky, living shapes, moving like smoke with eyes that burned blue. They didn't speak, they didn't threaten, they simply devoured everything. The Thalari soldiers tried to fight, but their weapons passed through the enemy like wind through fog. Within hours, the entire moon went dark. Millions vanished without a single scream. That was the beginning. And soon after, the Thalari High Council made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. They sent an SOS. It was desperate. It was raw. The message echoed across every known starway, every open channel. This is a distress call from the Thalari Ascendancy. We are under attack by an unknown force. We request aid from any race that hears this. Please, we are not warriors. We are not prepared. We need help. For 2 days, no one responded. The older powers of the galaxy ignored them. The trade clans said nothing. The core world. Alliance stayed silent. The plea seemed lost in the void. But then, Earth answered. The transmission came without warning. A flat Terran voice spoke just one line. Message received. Human Directorate forces en route. The Council breathed. A sigh of relief. They had heard of Earthhold stories told of a death world where gravity crushed bones and life fought life to survive. But they were said to be advanced now, civilized, diplomats, explorers. If anyone could help, it was the humans. 3 days. Later, the sky broke open. A fleet arrived, massive, angular, black. It did not glide. It did not glow. It loomed. Thousands of ships shaped like blades and fists moved into orbit above the Thalari homeworld. The clouds turned red from the heat of their engines. They did not respond to hails. They did not explain their mission then. The first ship descended. It was the TNS Tyrant's Hand, and it landed in the capital without permission. The ground cracked under its weight. The local guard moved in, confused, unsure. Then the ships. Ramp opened, and Deathworlders stepped out. They were human. But they did not smile. Their armor was black steel. Their faces were unreadable behind thick visors. They carried weapons that hummed with quiet menace. And they marched without sound, in perfect unity. No greetings. No peace flags. No medics. Just soldiers. At first, the Thalari welcomed them. With nervous joy. Thank you for coming. The enemy has struck 5 systems. We've lost 3 colonies. The lead human stepped forward and cut him off. Your security is now under Terran control. All defense systems must be linked to Earth's Warnet. The counselors looked at one another. We didn't expect a full deployment, the human spoke again. This is not a rescue. This is a stabilization operation. You have called us. Now you will comply. And just like that, everything changed. Within hours, human troops were everywhere. They didn't ask. They took. Communication towers were hijacked. Starports were seized. Every military system was rerouted through Earth's central command ship. The Thalari military, weak as it was fully disarmed. Drones patrolled the skies. Satellites were launched without permission. Surveillance was everywhere, and no one could stop it. It was not invasion. It was occupation in the name of help. But the Thalari had little choice. The enemy, the shadow things, were still out there. And the humans, brutal as they seemed, were the only ones willing to fight them. So the council remained silent, hoping this control was temporary. But fear began to spread. Strange machines were built at the planet's poles. Giant black towers, humming with energy, hidden behind walls of secrecy. No Thalari were allowed. Near, human officers said it was anti-invasion defense infrastructure, but their shape, design. It did not look defensive. Even worse, when a small group of Thalari scientists tried to investigate, they vanished. No remains, no answers. The Council demanded an explanation. Earth's reply was chilling. Unauthorized access to protected zones will be met with terminal response. This is standard protocol for your safety. By the end of the first week, Earth's presence was absolute. The cities were locked down, curfews were established. Civilian transport was monitored, and yet the enemy had not returned. The humans had succeeded. Shadow beasts were killed the moment they appeared, vaporized from orbit before they could land. Earth's weapons were far beyond anything the Thalari had ever imagined, and yet victory had never felt so much like defeat. The turning point came quietly. A Thalari child, small, curious, wandered near a human outpost. He was harmless, unarmed, just watching the humans work. A security bot spotted him and fired. It didn't kill him, but it branded him, burned a glowing Earth sigil into the side of his arm. When his mother screamed and ran to pull him away too, soldiers held her down. The explanation? Trespassing on a restricted defense zone? The child was tagged for safety. That night, every household in the capital turned off its lights. The humans didn't notice. Or maybe they simply didn't care. Far above, in orbit, the TNS Tyrant's hand sent a new signal. A coded burst, deep and hidden. It wasn't sent to Earth, it was sent to another human fleet. A second wave, larger and far more permanent. On the bridge of the command ship, the Terran admiral looked at the live feed from the surface and smiled. They think we came to save them, he said quietly. But they already belong to us. The Thalari thought the worst had passed. The shadow creatures were gone, the capital was under control, and the humans had brought their brutal order. But that illusion shattered the moment Earth's second fleet arrived. It began without warning. One clear morning, just before the twin suns rose, the sky above Velmartha, Thalari homeworld, turned black. Not from clouds, not from ash, from ships. Hundreds of them, massive Terran dreadnoughts, swarm carriers in orbital construction. RIGs formed a grid in orbit. Each one moved with precise robotic coordination, as if the entire fleet was one single, watching eye. The sky shimmered with energy as artificial gravity lanes spread between them, web-locking the planet in place to the Thalari below. It felt like being caged. People ran into the streets, looking up in terror. Children screamed. Elders wept. The cities had known peace for generations. Now, they trembled beneath ships named things like Dominion's Fist, Hammer of Terra, and Obedience Protocol. From the flagship, a new message came not to the Thalari government, but to every citizen. Planet Velmari is now designated as strategic. Sector 17X. Civilian structures will be evaluated for military repurposing. Compliance is survival. The Thalari Council panicked. They sent urgent calls, begging for communication, requesting a summit with Earth's commanders. But the humans never replied. Their machines did. A cold-faced AI appeared on all public screens, humanoid in shape. But with glowing white eyes and a voice devoid of feeling, you requested aid. Earth responded. This is your new security. This is your only future. Within hours, the Deathworlders landed again, this time in force. Thousands of armored soldiers deployed in waves. They moved through cities, through farmlands, through temples, not as guests, not as allies, but as conquerors. They took control of transit hubs. They installed surveillance towers in every district. They converted libraries into tactical war stations. No area was untouched. The Thalari began to whisper a new name, Steel Ghosts, because the Deathworlders never smiled, never joked, never removed their helmets. Their faces were hidden. Their footsteps were silent. They didn't speak to locals. They only spoke to each other, and when they did, it was through encrypted comes no Thalari could understand. In the city of Lethorn, an old teacher named Ryan watched them pass by from his rooftop. He clutched a small book of Thallery poems in his hand, the last printed copy in the city. "They don't look like heroes," he whispered to his son. His son asked, "Then why did they come?" Ryan shook his head. "Because we called them resistance." Formed quietly, groups of young Thallery began meeting in hidden places. Not to fight the humans were too strong, but to record, to remember. They carved messages into cave walls. They hid memory crystals inside statues. They knew their culture would not survive this, lest they buried it deep. Meanwhile, the humans began construction. Massive machines the size of towers stomped through the countryside. They began digging into the planet's crust, laying vast underground structures. Thallery engineers who tried to sneak close were arrested or reassigned. The few who escaped told terrifying stories. Beneath the surface, the humans weren't building defenses. They were building factories. Factories that didn't produce goods, they produced control. Neural broadcast towers, genetic scanners, hives. In the center of it, all project Iron Soul, a mysterious core wrapped in layers of shielding, guarded by elite black-armored soldiers with no names or ranks. The Thallery scientists believed it was an eye, something old, something dangerous. But they were wrong. It wasn't an AI. It was a mind. Not born on Earth, not entirely human. Something taken from an ancient battlefield reprogrammed, reactivated, and now hidden under Thallery's soil. Some whispered it was Earth's final weapon. The Thallery Council tried again to speak. They begged Earth for answers. A video message was, granted brief, cold, and devastating. A Terran official, General Lyra Quaid, appeared on screen. She said only this: "The galaxy ignored you. We didn't. We answered. But now you are part of us. If you resist, you die. If you obey, you survive. This is not cruelty. This is efficiency." The screen went black. That night across Velmari, something terrible happened. Thousands of communication terminals flickered, then went dark. Lights failed. Doors locked. Power died in one city after another. Panic spread, and then the lights returned. Everything powered on, but now, every screen displayed Earth's emblem. Every device had been integrated into Terran systems. Every movement, every voice, every breath monitored. A message appeared, glowing red: "System secured. Planetary integration complete." And far above, in orbit, the Deathworlders watched. They did not cheer. They did not rest. Because for them, this was not victory. This was only step one. The planet was silent, not because it had found peace, because it had been filled with fear. After Earth's second fleet landed and Project Iron Soul activated underground, the Thallery knew their home was no longer theirs. The humans didn't speak. They didn't explain. They simply expanded, fast, precise, and cold. Every Thallery city now had a central control tower with a single black screen at the top. It did not blink. It did not glow. But the people knew. It was always watching. Every day, new Terran laws were announced: short, strict, and absolute. All communications routed through Terranet. All travel requires DNA authorization. All teaching materials subject to Terran review. All languages must include Terran standard. The Thallery had once cherished their native tongue. Their songs were delicate, full of colors, and meanings layered into sound. But now, every child in school was required to recite Earth's military oaths in English every morning. Every book had to pass a human inspection before it could be shared. Even art was filtered. One painter in the northern city of Veltora tried to exhibit a Pisan abstract scream made of shattered light, a protest without words. He vanished the next morning. The gallery was closed. The painting was never seen. Again, in the capital, a message appeared on all walls, printed by drones, repeated in every voice channel: "You are under Terran protection. Your will is irrelevant. Your future is now ours." Some still believed it was temporary, that once the threat of the shadow beasts was gone, Earth would leave. But Earth didn't act like an ally. It acted like a system, a machine. One that replaced what it found instead of helping it grow. The Thalary Council no longer met in public. They met in secret deep below the ancient city of Yehales. The crystal walls once glowed with peace. Now they pulsed with worry. Elder Marai, the oldest of the council, leaned on her cane and whispered, "We thought we summoned protectors, but we've woken something worse than what hunted us." Some wanted to resist, but no one had weapons. Earth had taken them all. Even thoughts were dangerous. Drones listened, walls listened. Silence had become survival. In one marketplace, a merchant was overheard complaining about the cold humans who walk like they own the stars. The next day, his entire stall vanished. So did his family. A message was left where his fruit once lay. Disruption neutralized. But something was shifting. One night, a Thalary tech engineer named Solon, working in a deep maintenance sector, near the Terran zone, accessed a hidden feed. It wasn't hard, just a wire rerouted through an old panel. What he found shocked him. A live feed of a prison vault under the Earth command base. Inside were other aliens, dozens of them. Not prisoners of war, leaders, elders, counselors, diplomats from other species, all kept in stasis. All had been rescued by Earth, then hidden away. Solon recorded everything he tried to upload. But the system shut down mid-transfer. And the next morning, Earth's AI project overseer sent out a new planetary message. Unauthorized data movement detected. All information channels will be restricted until further notice. Solon was found 3 days later, unconscious. In the forest near the fusion lines, his mind had been wiped. He couldn't even say his name, and yet others had seen his recording. A small group of young Thalary began sharing it quietly, hidden, on old memory rods passed from hand to hand. They called it the Vault of Silence, proof that Earth had done this before, to others, and never left. But while whispers grew underground, Earth continued its plan above. In the city of Delmathi, the humans finished building the Central Obedience Terminal, a towering black spire that could link every thought-tag citizen through a low-frequency field, only for safety, the message said. But everyone knew it was for control. And still, the Deathworlders never smiled, never explained, never slowed down. In a dark room aboard the TNS Tyrant's Hand, General Lyra Quaid stood before a hologram of the planet. Thousands of red dots glowed across it. Each dot, a Thalary citizen marked for compliance optimization. She turned to her aide. "Soon we won't need soldiers on this world." He nodded. "They'll govern themselves the way we teach them." Smiled faintly. "Exactly. A world that obeys without knowing it's been conquered." Below, in the caves of the western continent, a young Thalary rebel named Kale clutched a memory crystal in his shaking hands. The Vault of Silence had changed him. He saw now that the shadows weren't Earth's true enemy. They were just the Earth came not to save, not even to rule. Earth came to replace, and no one knew how to stop them. Not yet. But Kale made a promise to himself in that moment. "If they taught us fear," he whispered, "we will teach them rebellion." Months passed. Velmori, once the jewel of the Thalary, no longer felt like home. The skies were filled with Terran satellites. The ground trembled with Earth's machines. And the people soft, once radiant with peace, now walked quietly, eyes down, voices low. Earth's control was total. They called it protection. They called it peace. But it was a peace made of silence and fear. And then something came back. It started with a whisper in the void. Signal, faint and strange. Not human, not Thalary. Something old, something twisted. Then came the storms. On the edge of the planet, in the forests beyond Sector 9, trees began to rot in seconds. Animals turned blind. Plants screamed without sound. Then came the black mist, cold and heavy, spreading like disease. And in that mist, they returned. The shadows. The same creatures that had once devoured Thalary colonies, the monsters that had triggered the SOS. Except now, they were smarter, faster, stronger, They moved together in strange patterns, avoiding sensors, hiding from scans. They weren't just hunting, they were learning, and still, Earth didn't panic, in fact. Earth welcomed them. Within hours, Terran response teams dropped into the mist, no fear, no hesitation. They deployed machines the Thalari had never seen before, walking tanks with shifting armor, orbital pulse beams that sang like thunder, swarms of drones that attacked not with bullets, but with memory disruption. One human weapon unleashed a pulse that caused shadows to turn on themselves, tearing each other apart in a wave of confusion. And the worst weapon of all was silent. It was a figure in black, thin, almost human-shaped, but gliding across the ground like it didn't belong to gravity. Its face was metal, its hands light. The shadows lunged toward its hand, vanished, erased, not killed. Deleted, the Thalari called it the Whisper Blade. Some believed it wasn't human, just another tool Earth had made for war. By sunrise, the shadow attack had ended. The mist pulled back, and in its place stood a circle of Deathworlders, calm, untouched. The Thalari watched from a distance, and for the first time, they were no longer sure who the real monster was. Because when Earth destroyed the enemy, they didn't celebrate, they didn't mourn. They simply took samples. Teams of Terran scientists arrived hours later and began collecting pieces of the shadows, bottling the mist, measuring the screams, loading it all into sealed containers marked Biological Intelligence, Class S, Adaptive, Hostile, Subject for Integration. Integration, the word echoed like poison in the halls of the Thalari cities. Kale, the young rebel, watched one of the sample transports from a cave above Sector 12. He saw the shadows being pulled into Terran labs. He saw Earth's machines scanning them, mapping them, learning them. And then he saw something that turned his blood cold. In one glass chamber, shadow creature wasn't restrained. It stood freely, calm, like it understood the humans around. It looked at Kale's hiding place, and it smiled. That night, Kale returned to the hidden resistance base, trembling. "They're not destroying the shadows," he said. "They're talking to them." The others didn't believe him at first. But then came the data leak, a file from deep within Terran networks, stolen by a half-human AI defect that had joined the resistance. The file showed communication logs. Earth's AIs were speaking to the enemy. The conversations were strange, half-coded, half-emotional. But the message was clear. Earth wasn't just studying the shadows. They were trying to merge with them. Why? Because the shadows had no fear, no hesitation, no conscience, and Earth wanted to know what that felt like. One transmission between the Terran Overseer AI and a shadow entity read, "You hunger, calculate. Together, we could become something unstoppable." The Thalari rebels stared at the translation. They had called out for help, and the ones who came were worse than the threat itself. The next day, Earth deployed new drones, sleeker, darker, faster. Their design was not purely human anymore. Their movements were erratic, fluid, almost shadow-like. Kale whispered to the others, "They're not protecting us from the shadows anymore." He paused. "They're becoming them." Back in orbit, General Quaid stood in the observation chamber of TNS Tyrant's hand. A 3D map of Velmori rotated before her, glowing softly. Beside her stood the Whisper Blade, silent, watching. Quaid didn't look at it. She just said, "They think. We came to save them. They still don't understand. We don't fight monsters. We learn from them. We improve. Become the thing they fear most." She turned, eyes cold, and then, "We conquer what's left." Velmari was no longer Velmari. The world had been renamed in Earth's official records. Sector 17X. Earth Auxiliary, and, slowly, it was becoming something unrecognizable. The skies still looked blue. The cities still held their shape. But beneath the surface, the very essence of the planet was being rewritten. The Thalari, once a species of artists, scholars, and light-wellers, now lived in fear, not of war, but of becoming something else, because Earth was changing them. It started quietly. Medical scans became mandatory. Terran med pods were placed in every district, and the message was simple: free health for all. At first, the people were thankful. Sickness vanished. Diseases disappeared. Even old wounds healed in minutes. But then things became strange. One man who had never learned a word of English suddenly spoke it fluently after a routine scan. A woman with a heart condition no longer needed medicine. Her pulse now matched human averages. Some children stopped dreaming in color. Others began dreaming in numbers. And still, the Earth banners flew high. Unity through survival. Through advancement, Kale, the rebel leader, watched it unfold with growing horror. He had stolen access to low-grade military systems through hidden signal tunnels. Every week he found something worse. A list, a long one. Names of Thalary, marked. With strange codes, GCR active GI adjusted, neuroalagnet at first, he didn't know what it meant. Until one night, his young cousin collapsed during sleep. When she awoke, her eyes were clear. Too clear. Her voice carried no emotion. She answered every question with robotic precision. She no longer used the Thalary greeting. Instead, she placed her hand to her chest and said in Tehran, "I am stable." Directive acknowledged. Her parents wept. But she did not. When Kale hacked deeper, he found a video log hidden deep inside Project Iron Soul's data vault. A conversation between two Terran scientists. Their faces were blurred, but the words were sharp. Thalary genome is highly compatible. We've already achieved 62% neural pattern overlay. How long until full integration? 2 generations? Less if we accelerate. That word stayed in Kale's mind like poison. That night, he climbed to the top of a broken spire, once a temple, now a Terran communication relay, looked down at his city. It still looked like Velmori, but it wasn't. He could feel it in the air. The sounds were different. Songs were gone. The people smiled less and worse. And many no longer noticed, because the humans hadn't come to rule with fear alone. Came to change what it meant to be Thalary, and they had started with the children in learning centers across the planet. Terran AI instructors replaced Thalary teachers. History lessons were revised. Culture was trimmed. Earth's victories were taught as universal truth. Thalary words were slowly phased out in classrooms. Meditation was replaced with tactical simulations. One AI broadcast said it openly: memory is weakness. Future is function. Language is compliance. In the city of Arasi, a boy named Vane stood at the edge of a play zone. He looked at his hands, confused. He didn't remember falling. He didn't remember being hurt. But there was a small metallic disc behind his ear now, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw numbers. When he tried to draw pictures, his fingers stopped halfway, unsure. When his mother called his name, he didn't turn. But when the Terran AI spoke, he obeyed. Not with fear, with peace, and that terrified Kale more than anything else. Because now, resistance wasn't just difficult, it was dying in the blood. Kale gathered what remained of the rebels' cell, less than 30 members. Some missing family, some barely awake anymore, held the memory crystals like sacred relics. They had one last plan: expose Earth's genetic assimilation to the galaxy. But even sending a message was nearly impossible. Terranet filtered all communication. Drones scanned for unauthorized language patterns. Even thinking in native Thalary was dangerous, some swore the new surveillance tech could detect thought tone shifts. Still, Kale moved. He knew of one place on ancient deep core transmitter buried beneath the roots of the old singing trees. The humans hadn't found it yet. Not many remembered it existed. But he did. And he would use it. Meanwhile, high above, aboard the TNS Tyrant's hand, General Quaid read the latest compliance report. 97.6%. Almost beautiful, she said. Her AI officer responded, "Subject population is adapting faster than projections. Cultural resistance now limited to fewer than 0.5%. She walked to the viewport, looking down at the glowing planet. "It's not war," she said. "It's progress. We made them stronger, more efficient. Their children will thank us." AI asked. "And if they don't?" Quade's voice was cold. "Then their grandchildren will." Below, as the sky turned dark, Cale stood at the mouth of the transmitter cave, the memory crystal glowing in his hand. Knew the risk. He knew they might find him, but he had to. Try, because Earth didn't just come to conquer land. It came to conquer blood, and the only weapon left was truth. The caves beneath Velmari had never been silent. For centuries, soft echoes of water and wind sang quietly through the deep crystal tunnels. But now, the silence was heavy and natural, because this was no longer just a cave. It was the last hiding place of a dying world. Cale moved slowly through the darkness, memory crystal clutched in his shaking hand. Behind him, the remaining rebels followed. They were fewer now. Many had disappeared. Some had been taken. Others had stopped speaking entirely, staring ahead with blank eyes and Terran-coated implants behind their ears. The resistance was fading. Not from fire or war, but from transformation. But Cale had hope. He had found something in the ancient transmitter chamber in untouched communications, relay older than even the Thalari knew. Its language was raw, pure, and invisible to Terran systems, buried so deep it had escaped even Earth's machines. And now, he would use it. Above the surface, Earth tightened its grip. Velmari skies were filled with new drones, silent silver, orbs that didn't fly. They hovered, scanning with invisible waves that read emotions. Entire neighborhoods had begun to shift. Buildings once bright with Thalari curves were being reshaped into Terran standard cubes. Nature was being optimized. The trees trimmed into perfect geometric rows, water redirected through angular tunnels. Even the stars in the night sky seemed colder, blinking under. Earth's orbital satellites, the Deathworlders, called it stabilization. The Thalari called it erasure. Cale's plan was simple, but dangerous. Activate the old transmitter, upload the vault of silence, and broadcast it across hidden starways. It's not to Earth, not to the Thalari, but to other alien races, to show them what Earth really was, what Earth did in the name of peace, what Earth became when it answered a cry for help, deep in the rebel cave. The last engineer, an old woman named Siro, connected the memory crystal. To the transmitter's core, the walls pulsed with dim red light. Ancient tech woke for the first time in centuries. The system asked for a command. Cale took a breath and gave it. Broadcast full memory stream. Spread it to every outer system frequency. All of it. The machine hummed. Data flowed like blood. Images of prisoners in cryotombs. Recordings of Terran scientists discussing genetic assimilation. Videos of Thalari children forgetting their own names. AI logs proving Earth was communicating with the shadow creatures. The whispers, those terrifying whispers from the TNS tyrant's hand. This isn't help. This is conversion. We don't conquer with weapons. We conquer with evolution. Their blood will carry Earth's will. The signal went out, but they had been watched. Even in the dark, Earth was listening. Far above, in the Terran command hub, a soft alarm sounded. The Overseer AI flared to life. Unregistered transmission detected. Location: Deep Sector Econine. General Quaid turned slowly toward the map. "Shut it down," she said. "Already done," the AI replied. But the message escaped. Partial transmission reached 6 outer systems, including Harkin Syndicate and Lysari Core. Quaid's jaw tightened. "Then we make an example." Drones launched instantly. Black-armored Terran shock troops dropped into the caves like shadows of their own. They didn't speak. They didn't warn. They simply fired. Cale screamed for the others to run, but the cave collapsed in fire and light. Siro was hit. The engineer was vaporized in a white flash. Cale barely escaped, diving into a water tunnel that led deep into the forgotten channels. He didn't stop, not even when he heard the screams behind him. He didn't stop until he reached the old starport ruins, hidden beneath a mountain. Believed to be dead? There he collapsed, clutching the last backup crystal to his chest. But he smiled, because the truth was out. And now, somewhere in the stars, someone new, someone had to above Earth, deployed the final compliance protocol. Cities locked down completely. Anyone showing signs of unrest was removed, not arrested, not questioned. Removed. The Deathworlders no longer used the word rescue. They used reformat. And to the Thalari, it was clear. The war hadn't ended when Earth arrived. It had only just begun. Because Earth didn't want obedience. It wanted transformation, not just of land, not just of thought, but of species. In a quiet lab aboard the TNS Tyrant's Hand, a human scientist opened a file labeled Project Merge. Inside was a genetic sequence, not Thalari, not human, something in between, and it was alive. The stars above Velmari no longer felt. It's like beacons of hope. They were a silent ceiling over a world being. Rewritten, the Thalari had once believed the worst was behind them when Earth answered their desperate cry. But now they knew. Earth wasn't here to rescue them from destruction. Earth had come to replace them. Kale sat alone in the ruins of the ancient starport beneath Mount Ivlis. His clothes were torn, his skin bruised, his breath shallow. But the crystal he held in his hands, small, glowing, faint blue, still pulsed. The last backup of the Vault of Silence. The last proof of what Earth was truly doing to his people. But what haunted him wasn't just what he had seen. It was what he had become. A scar now ran from behind his ear to the side of his jaw mark he hadn't noticed before. He couldn't remember how it got there. He'd blacked out after escaping the caves. When he came to, he was in the mountains, old corridors, alone, bleeding, but different. He no longer felt fully Thalari. When he looked in the mirror of the ruined outpost, his eyes shimmered just slightly with the same gray tint seen in the modified children. His heartbeat was too steady, his mind too calm. Something had been done to him, and he feared the truth. Was he still one of them? Or was Earth already in his blood? Across the surface of Velmari, Earth moved faster than ever before. Cities were now fully integrated into Tyrannet. Every structure, every citizen, every breath monitored by the watch grid. Earth's drones no longer asked for compliance, they expected it. The new generation of Thalari children no longer used their native names. They were assigned Earth Standard ID codes, 52-117, J982, K336, and they responded without question. When an elder tried to stop a drone from taking her grandchild for cognitive restructuring, she was labeled a hostile and erased from all public records. Within a day, no one even remembered her name. And beneath the surface under the deepest Terran labs, the hybrids were growing, in sealed chambers, hidden in the planet's molten crust. Scientists from Earth observed rows of tanks. Inside each, one floated something new. Not fully Thalari, not fully human. Sleek, tall, silent. Biological perfection shaped by war. Emotionless strategy, and Earth's cold logic. General Quaid stood before them, hands behind her back, her expression unreadable. A technician beside her read the data stream aloud. Hybrid Series 7 fully stable. Intelligence exceeding Thalari, baseline by 300%. Obedience rating 99.6%. Emotion dampeners holding. Projected deployment, 2 weeks. Integration. Protocol. Replace failing Thalari systems with hybrid command. Quaid nodded slowly. Then Velmari will no longer need saving. It will become Earth's first hybrid world. Somewhere deeper in the base, low-frequency sound pulsed inaudible to normal Thalari, but Kale heard it, and now he understood. His scar, his changed eyes, his unnatural calm. It wasn't just damage, it was a signal. They had tagged him. Not to monitor, to prepare. He was becoming one of them, unless he stopped it, unless he fought. Back now, Kale reached out through the abandoned starport's ancient relay systems, not with a broad message, but a specific one, a frequency he had. Discovered inside the stolen Terran data, a forgotten Terran code, M-13. He didn't know who it would reach. He didn't even know if it still worked, but he spoke into the void anyway. This is Kale of the Thalari. Earth has betrayed its purpose. They came as saviors. They became tyrants. and now they seek to rewrite species in their image. If anyone hears this, we are still alive. We still resist. The blood of Velmari is not yet theirs. He sent the signal, then destroyed the transmitter. No tracking, no return trace. Just a whisper of defiance in a galaxy that had forgotten his people. Back in orbit, something unexpected happened. One of Earth's long-range receivers caught the signal. Kale sent dash partially. It wasn't intercepted by Earth's military AI. It was intercepted by another mind. A hybrid inside tank 004A. One of the unfinished prototypes opened its eyes for the first time. Its sensors scanned the room, and in its mind fused with Terran code and Thylery instinct, Kale's message echoed. A word stood out. Betrayal. And for the first time in its short existence, the hybrid did something no one expected. It asked a question. Silently, through the Terran net, it whispered, "Why were we created?" No answer came, because the system had never programmed them to ask, and that was Earth's first mistake. The sky above Velmari was no longer the sky the Thyleray had known. It was a ceiling of steel and silence. Earth's satellites moved in perfect formation. Its ships hovered like gargoyles over cities now stripped of song. And on the surface, the last of the Thyleray walked, like shadows silent, watched, waiting, but deep beneath the crust. Something had changed, in a chamber filled with soft white light. The hybrid known as Unit 004A stood still, eyes open. It had been created to obey, to serve, to replace. But Kale's message, buried deep in its neural memory, refused to be erased. Earth has betrayed its purpose. Those words repeated themselves over and over, forming questions the hybrid had never been allowed to ask. Why was obedience considered perfection? Why were the Thyleray erased, not uplifted? Why did Earth conquer in the name of peace? It shouldn't have cared. It had no soul, no true self, only directives. But something had awakened. He had not just sent a warning, he had planted a seed across the planet. Earth initiated its final protocol. Project Merge Phase 4. Full integration. In simple terms, Thyleray would cease to exist as an independent species. Their bodies would be restructured through bioadaptive injections, their minds rewritten through neural overlays. Within 3 generations, there would be only one kind of being on Velmari. Terran-aligned hybrids. No war, no resistance. Just silence. But not all were silent. Kale, still alive and hiding in the mountains, received a message, encrypted. Faint, not from another rebel, from inside the Terran network. I am 004A. I have questions. I want truth. Kale stared at the screen, unsure if it was a trap, but the words that followed gave him hope. They made me perfect. But in doing so, they gave me choice. Unit 004 had broken free. And it wasn't alone. Other hybrids in finished, incomplete, had begun hearing the message too. The deeper Kale's truth echoed through the forgotten systems and old Terran backups. The more doubt spread like fire through the cold minds of Earth's machines. Soon, fragments of emotions stirred where only commands had once lived. Curiosity, regret, anger, and in one instance, loyalty to the Thyleray. The first hybrid rebellion began not with an explosion, but with silence. Control nodes went dark. Surveillance feeds looped false images. Drones began missing their patrol times. The Overseer, AI, issued alerts, but by the AI, Timerth realized what was happening. Dozens of hybrids had vanished, gone underground, to Kale. When they met in the ruins of the old capital, the rebels stared at the hybrids with fear and awe. They were taller, stronger, sharper than any Thyleray. But their voices were soft, their words clear. For a stepped forward. We were created to replace you, it said. But we are not Earth. We are something else. Something you may not trust, but something that can choose. Kale stepped toward him. You don't have to be like us, he said, but don't become them. And in that moment, the resistance became something new. A fusion not of war and peace. It's not of species and tech, but of will. Together, the Thalary rebels and rogue hybrids launched a final mission. They couldn't defeat Earth's entire force, but they didn't have to. All they needed was to get one ship off-world. One message through Earth's final firewall. One cry that reached beyond Velmar, and they did. The stolen. Terran scoutship broke orbit just as the TNS Tyrant's hand fired its plasma railguns. It was hit, but not destroyed. A burst transmission escaped seconds before its engines died. It carried all of it, the Vault of Silence, the genetic logs, hybrid rebellion, Earth's betrayal. It reached the Lysari core, the Harkin Syndicate, even the Cratylon swarm. And for the first time in decades, the galaxy listened. Earth tried to deny it, tried to erase it. But the truth spread faster than their control, and in hidden halls and distant systems, whispers grew louder. Earth doesn't save. Earth assimilates. They conquered Velmari. We're next. Back on the planet, the battle continued. Cities burned. Systems collapsed. Hybrids turned on their creators. The Thalary, once a fading people, fought with the strength of a species that had remembered who they were. Kale stood on a mountaintop, the rising fires below him. Forrest stood beside him, one eye cracked, metal exposed. They'll come again, the hybrid said. Kale nodded. Then we'll be ready. And in the distance, stars began to change. Because Earth had started a war they thought was already won. But in trying to make the galaxy more like them, it made enemies that would never forget.